afternoon, everyone, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to our Sunday Talks, and I truly appreciate you being here today. We have arranged a number of interesting and meaningful activities, so I hope this event will not be only enjoyable for you, but also useful. And let me briefly introduce you to today's speaker. First speaker, Ms. Komila, will talk about how IELTS can help you in the future with your future job and choosing a better career. After that, our second speaker will share insights on a very inspiring topic, how to become a pilot, including the skills, qualification, and dedication the profession requires. And after that, we will finish our event with an interesting game. So, let's welcome our first speaker, Ms. Komila. Welcome you.
Okay, good morning everybody, the students, kids, and welcome to our Sunday Talks. So today I want to talk about how can IELTS help you when choosing a right career. So now let's get started. So beginning of my journey. So when I first got my 7-point IELTS certificate, I got accepted to university and started studying there. In my freshman year, I really wanted to work and study at the same time to develop myself, and also I was eager to work in teaching sphere, as I mentioned in earlier Sunday talks, as my parents were teachers from English and from German language, and I also wanted to become a teacher and start as earlier as I can. And I applied for some education centers. Some of them were very renowned and some of them were less popular, but everything was good, but except my age. So they had age limit. It was at least, the candidate should be at least 18 years old. But at that time I was around 17 or 16 years old, so I was unable to work somewhere. And I had nowhere to work and just wait for my 18th birthday. Then one day when I was sitting in the lecture room, in the lecture hall with my group mates, and one of my group mates started talking about her education center where she studied and got IELTS. And it was very interesting to hear her experience. Then I asked some information about her education center, and she told me that it was Result School where she studied. Then, and after that, she told me some information about where to apply, how to apply, and after that, I wanted to work here at Result School. Then I took the contacts, the channel, their vacancy channel of Result School, and it was, I think, 2 years ago. Then I joined their channel, their vacancy channel. So you can see it was 2024 in October. And then when I exactly joined this channel, I got such kind of message from the channel like, we need academic support teachers for Result School, and the requirements were also suitable for me. The age was also suitable for me because they hired from 16 years old. Unlike in some places, they hire from 21 years old or 18 years old, but Result School hired people like their candidates from 16 years old. So then I had all these requirements. I had 7.5 IELTS, I knew Uzbek and Russian, and then I was also eager to work in teaching sphere. Then the schedule was also really suitable for me, which was from 2 to 8. But the only disadvantage was the location, because as you see, the branch was Maxim Gorky. At that time, Maxim Gorky branch was a little bit far from my home, so it took me lots of hours to reach to my home. But anyways, I applied for this job. And as you can see here, on October 16th, 2 years ago, I texted this HR manager. Then I sent all my CVs and my certificates, and eventually they invited me for job interview. So you know, yes, what is job interview, people? So when you have an interview with the HR manager, the person who gives you job. Then, job interview, before the job interview, I was very stressed, I was very shocked because I expected job interviews to be like this. For example, you have seen this movie, I think, like Devil Wears Prada, yeah? Then, I expected the HR manager to be such kind of person who was very nitpicking, kind of arrogant, or very serious person. And eventually, I came to this Maxim Gorky branch to the scheduled meeting. Then I was shocked when I saw other candidates because there were more than 25 candidates for one position, for one job. So they also had IELTS certificate, they also knew Russian well, but I was very wondering, what if they don't accept me? What if I get rejected again? So then I thought about like, I can do this. I kept calm and reserved, and finally it was my turn and HR manager called my name. Then I clearly remember the day when I sat like in front of the HR manager and she started talking in a friendly manner. She was also just like me, around 18 or 19 years old. Then it was totally different from such kind of HR manager. She was very polite and she was very friendly manager, this HR Miss Medina. Then she started asking me some questions about myself, about my future plans, and about my language skills. And the interview lasted for around 10 to 15 minutes. And after that, she said that they would contact me within 3 days. And those 3 days seemed like an age. Like ages. I had to wait. I checked my Telegram messages whether they contacted with me or not, or I looked through my contacts like did they call me or not, and I was really waiting for this. Then eventually the day came and I got the message called congratulations, you have been accepted for our internship, like you have passed job interview. And then they informed me that there will be a 1 month internship. So let me introduce what is internship. First of all, internship is the process, is a training where you will learn something from experienced teachers or someone related to your job. For example, in our teaching sphere, I had internship with other people as well, and we observed like popular, like experienced teachers' lessons, for example, Mr. Abbas, Mr. Shahbaz, and other people at result, and learned how to teach, how to communicate with students, or how to, let's say, how to conduct interesting lessons, and it was very useful. So they informed me that the internship will last for 1 month, and after 1 month, they will take tests from us. So nowadays they call it apprenticeship as well, ustaz shagird. Yes, internship, this is ustaz shagird. Then after that, I started my internship in Maxim Gorky branch, as you see. Even though it was really difficult for me to commute from my home to Maxim Gorky, I somehow managed it for 2 weeks. And after that, I got very let's say exhausted after a long working day, and it was really hard for me to reach my home after 8-9 o'clock because I was nearly coming home and just sleeping, doing nothing. So that's why I decided to rotate my branch, and I contacted with the head teacher of Maxim Gorky branch, Mr. Dior, and after that I asked that can I work in Chilanzar branch, which is nearer my house. But unfortunately, there were no vacancies in Chilanzar branch because like there were lots of people working there and there was no place left for me. That's why he asked me to come to this Alisher Nawai branch. So as you can see, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, Alisher Nawai branch, but now it's bigger. So there is no book nomi now. Yes, it's also result, 2 floors. At that time, it was only a second floor result. And after that, I was in real dilemma. I didn't know what to choose, to stay in Maxim Gorky even if it's very difficult for me to commute or to come to Ali Shernawai branch and start everything with new people, like new stuff, let's say. And after that, finally, I decided to come here to this branch, and I contacted with Mr. Shahbaz, the head teacher of this branch. And after that, I continued my internship with Mr. Abbas. So when I first saw this teacher, I thought that he's very strict person or he's very arrogant person. How can I work with him? And I was literally like this cat. Like you see, like I was shocked. Then after that, he taught me how to check homework of students and how to conduct lessons. And I observed his lessons for 2 weeks. And I became his assistant. And at the same time, I worked as a support teacher. Then being an assistant and support teacher was a little bit tough because I had to work not only with just ordinary support classes, but also individually with Mr. Abbas students. Like at that time, Mr. Abbas mainly had IELTS groups, and I had to work with IELTS students. And mainly their IELTS students used to have writing lessons with me, as it was their weakness. And after that, I started to teach writing lessons mainly to his IELTS groups. And then, as I mentioned before, he had lots of IELTS groups. Every day he used to give me 10 or 15 essays to check, and it was very pressuring for me at that time. I worked under pressure. I have to finish checking these essays by this deadline, and I should give feedback for students, and it was a bit hard for me to catch up with my studies as well, and with these checking essays, having support classes, and this being assistant staff. Then, but somehow I managed to have time and catch up with everything. Then I can say that these checking essays helped me a lot. My efforts bore fruit, what can I say? Then before coming to result, or before working as an assistant, or before working as a support teacher, my IELTS writing score was 6.5, which was the lowest section in my previous IELTS exam. But now, after working as a support teacher, after having writing lessons with students, and after being an assistant teacher of Mr. Abbas, I managed to improve my writing, and now, as you can see, it's 7.5. Yeah, it can be very simple for someone to improve by 1 score in writing, but for me, it was a real challenge. And I can say that this checking essay really helped me a lot, because there were different students. For example, there were students whose ideas were great, whose ideas were very amazing. And then when I read their essays, I also got some notion for myself as well. Why don't I use what student is using? What can I use, for example? So then I also started learning some chunks from their essays as well. Then, what about work and study balance? What about keeping the balance? So it was really tough for me to keep the balance. So as you see in the picture, like me and my work and study balance, they are burning, as you see. Then, well, yes, I faced some difficulties, especially when I had university exams, when I failed some of my exams at university because of lack of time to prepare. Then I learned the most important thing in balancing between my work and study. So it was time management. Before working and studying simultaneously, I used to just waste my time by doing nothing, scrolling reels, doing some nonsensical stuff. But after working and studying at the same time, I realized that even if you have a little time left for yourself, it should be enough for you. For example, you can spend it with your friends, or you can spend it with your family members. And the thing that I learned a lot, it was time management. Then, what about support? Let's talk about some support, my supporters when I was working and studying here. Then, of course, on the first thing, on the first place, our parents are our supporters. They always encouraged me to work, and they always gave me some motivation when I wanted to give up, everything, just working and studying, when I had some stressful situations. And apart from that, I can say the team also helped me not to give up. So as you can see, this is our little kind of colleague circle. So there are actually lots of people behind this scene as well who supported and encouraged us. So whenever I had kind of stressful or hard situation, I just told them to my colleagues, let's say, how can I do this one? Or when I had difficulty with working with students, how can I approach this student? How can you help me? For example, from my colleagues, Mr. Ayub or Miss Malika, they always supported and encouraged me. And I'm really glad to have such kind of very helpful and very supportive colleagues, because in other branches, for example, I have seen that they are also kind of friendly or kind of family, but it's not, it's more than that here in Ali Sharnawi branch. Maybe they have become my second family already. So their support also mattered a lot in coming here to this stage and achieving my goals. And finally, after working for about 9 or 8 months of being support teacher and assistant, I managed to become a general English teacher as well. So here you can see, like, it was, I think, in September when I first got my group, and I started working as a kids teacher. So as you can see, there are some of my kids students, for example, Firuza, Aziza, yes. And in September, I got promoted and I updated my IELTS score. And after that, I started working as a kids teacher. Then, working as a kids teacher, I can say that it's very interesting to work with such kind of very creative kids. And apart from kids groups, they have given me some other groups as well, kind of Safer groups or general English groups and other groups. Then, I can say that in conclusion, so if you want to take good result from IELTS, from CFR, or if you want to achieve something in your, let's say, education, just come to result. What about self-development, for example? If you want to develop yourself, if you want to be the best version of yourself, just come to result, as I did. Then, what about personal growth? So when I came to result, I wasn't that experienced, I wasn't that mature, but now I can say that I have gained some of these qualities. And if you want to grow personally, I advise you to come to Result School. Then, what about secure career? So as I mentioned, I came here 2 years ago, and still I'm working and developing, working on myself, which means I already have a secure career. So that's why if you want to have a secure career, just come to Result. And what about team? If you want to have an excellent team, like my colleagues, let's say, just come to Result. So Result opens doors for not only your IELTS results, but also for self-development, personal growth, excellent team, and also for your further career. And in conclusion, I want to say that just try to achieve, try to push yourself to the limits, especially when you are young. Like when you are fresh, when you have fresh mind, when you are eager to try something new, when you are really active, try to do something now, like when you are young. It can be late when you grow up, so push yourself to your limits, achieve your goals, and also don't forget about your self-development as well, accept your result. Now, thank you for coming to this Sunday event, and now our next speaker will continue his speech. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for that insightful and inspiring talk, for real. As we just heard, IELTS can open many doors in many cases, not only with the job career, but also with your self-development as well. And speaking of ambitious career paths, our next topic is about one of the most exciting and respected professions in the world. Our second speaker will talk about how to become a pilot or a cabin crew and what steps are needed to turn this dream into reality. So please give him a warm welcome. Mr. Lubek, welcome.
Thank you.